year later date on it, but we don't want anyone not to walk with their class and have their open house. For all intents and purposes, they graduated, they'll take one online class with high school. They won't even see the campus anymore. They'll be going to schoolcraft classes mostly, but they do need to have that one lingering class for the state to keep providing funding.
I think it's remarkable that that the students have been successful. And my understanding that there have been no failures, no drops, no.
Not in our early middle college. We have dual enroll kids who do occasionally fail. That's pretty low too. Most of our kids do not. I mean, they have success with the programs they're enrolling in because they want to be there.
Right.
But early middle college, we haven't had any. We have had some students who've decided to stop, like they started 11th and stopped in 12th because they wanted to go on to their 4-year program. But we have several students. I mean, we've got a good 8 to 10 kids who will be our first group who will likely get their associate's degree.
Sorry to be ignorant, but dual enrollment, is that, that's literally what it sounds like, right? Like that's enrollment with us, enrollment in a college course. Do kids do that at MSU in Michigan and
dual enrollment in Michigan?
K College and
any student in a high school in Michigan has right to take 10 college classes during their high school career. We pay whatever our FTE is for that one section. So we take them out of a section at the high school, we put them into a college class, and we pay for that. Right now, that number is around $600 per course, and we pay for that course up to $600. So most of our kids go to Schoolcraft because $600 covers the course and the fees and the books. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go to Michigan, Dearborn, or Eastern or something, we'll pay the $600. You just have to pay the rest. So dual enrollment limits them into 10 classes, where in early middle college, there is no limit. They go through the program finishing the entire degree. But dual enrollment is the same as early middle college, except that they're limited and they're taking scattered classes, whatever they choose to take, right. Likely things they're going to transfer to another school at some point.
I wanted to ask a little bit about anything else about that? I wanted to ask a little bit about the instructional delivery, particularly related to Schoology, and just kind of those flags.
Could you tell us what page?
Sorry.
Reference?
Page 7 of 17, or it's number page 18 in our packet. It's just the next page from what we were talking about. Okay. So just curious a little bit, and you might not have the answers today, and that's okay. Was just wondering about kind of our projected costs, because we know that we're going to start to lose those funds. Yes. And we know that Schoology has been such a pivotal tool in our district. So looking ahead to the future, in terms of what we might need to be prepared for on the finance subcommittee and just as a board.
So one of the things we had Ken Turner do, our instructional technology coordinator, before he left, he was, and it's outlined in that report here too, he did a survey, or kind of an ROI for us on some of our tech tools, asking teachers which ones they use, which ones they find value in, which ones they don't ever use, ones they've never even heard of. Like, have you ever heard of this one? And it helps us to identify, because we attacked a lot of tools during COVID. We've dropped a few of those that have not had popularity over the last couple of years since we moved away from COVID. Hearing myself.
You're hearing yourself talking.
And so what we've started to do is to prioritize those, and we outlined that here, and we'll talk a little bit about those things in the future. But we've got some tools that teachers have said maybe you don't need. Like, for example, let's talk about MobiMax. It's a K-8 tool we started using, personalized learning tool. Our usage in 6-8 has been much lower than elementary school. So there are conversations about, well, do we drop it in middle school and save the money? We just got to find ways to be cost effective. But something like Schoology, you're talking about $5 per kid. It's a per kid cost because it's the number of licenses that you get. And then ClassLink has its own cost, which means we have single sign-on. But we're looking at, Clever is now, which is a program that allows single sign-on for free. And Clever kind of works in the background a lot of our programs. And so we've had some conversations about, well, do we get rid of ClassLink because Clever does that same thing a lot better than it used to when COVID was going on. So all those conversations are going on. But we spend a couple $100,000 a year on digital tools to make sure our kids have them. And they're all different. For NWEA, this year, great news, the county is paying for it through a grant that's a very expensive tool, and our kids are going to have access to it K-12 for free. We've been paying for it for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So all of those things, and just continue to look at grants. Like last year, we picked up 98C money. We used that to pay for all those digital tools because we could. And so we just keep trying to offset from the general fund to keep the tools alive. But for example, with MobiMax, what we figured out this year is that they now offer a tool which connects their NWA score to MobiMax directly. And so for the first time ever, kids take their NWA score, it's automatically going to provide them tools based on their score and what they need to do specifically. So they're not just wandering around in MobiMax. They have very targeted things, which is what Math Accelerator does already, which is for math. And then, which ours lab is Nuzella for reading. So we're going to try that this year, see if that increases the usage. If it does, then we may have conversations about keeping it. If it doesn't, then we decide what needs to go. But we'll continue. Since COVID, we dropped 3 specific products. They weren't overly expensive, but in some cases we've dropped it at the high school because they don't use it or they don't find value in it. Like right now, we have no Turnitin. And with artificial intelligence, we're not sure if Turnitin will continue to be helpful as a plagiarism checker. It might not be valuable anymore. We might not want to spend money on it. So we just keep watching all those tools. But there is no doubt that we will have to make decisions on some of these in the near future. Schoology is on the last line of cuts, though, because it is the closest to the classroom as far as a digital learning environment. Like, I can't imagine us not having a learning management system at this point.
Right.
So it would be much lower on the list of things. We'd have to get pretty desperate to be going after something like Schoology.
Could you explain what ClassLink is? Because I asked my son about it, and he said he uses it once a year to get on Schoology, and then
And then he never has to go back on again.
That's the
So
point.
what some may remember years ago, when we had 16 programs, you had 16 usernames and passwords. And when COVID happened, what we knew was that parents were that frustration was going to get worse. So ClassLink is a single sign-on program, which basically allows us to load everything we use into one map. And so kids can log into ClassLink, and from there, they can access anything without usernames and passwords.
okay,
So
like
once they log in
MyStar,
one,
can they access their?
they can
Except for
access-
is it MyStar? Does it go, MyStar does it?
MyStar should be available in there as
Thought it
well
was
for them.
still separate.
But often our kids, they will just go to Schoology directly because that's username and password might be saved. It's the same username and password they use for everything else. But the thing, Google allows them to kind of log into ClassLink one time, and then it authenticates them, and then everything in the background is authenticating for them. So teachers can add their own websites in there. Maybe they use ABC Mouse. I mean, it can be district resources or not, but everything is then just single sign-on, just one
So
click.
you're
and they're
saying
in.
staff utilizes ClassLink as well to?
Staff can also add to their backpack, and it allows them, like if they use a website a lot. So it just creates what looks like an iPad screen, really, when they go to my ClassLink. And it just shows all the programs that are available to them as a student. And then if they click on any of them, it automatically logs them into those programs.
At
It
one
just creates a more of an ease for people.
At one point, like in April of 2020, I had a spreadsheet because I have 3 kids in 2 or 3 different schools. And there was a spreadsheet because the teachers would say, do this activity, like as part of their lesson. It was like, do this activity on MobiMax and do this IXL and do this. There was a reading one. And I mean, it was, I hated to sound like a baby, but it was a lot, and they couldn't manage it. Like I had to, so that's another thing, is it empowered the littler kids.
So over that summer, as we planned for virtual learning, we brought on learning management system that was universal. So everyone was on the same one to keep the confusion down, and also brought in ClassLink to cut down on usernames and passwords. But that's an area where a company like Clever, which I don't understand all of it the way that Andrew and Steve do, but they basically are working in the background now in a lot of these programs, and they've started to get bigger and bigger, and they're still free. I don't even understand how they get their money from the people that they create access for. And so at some point we might not need a program like that because our single sign-on through Google will just work directly with Clever, and a bunch of stuff happens in the background, but it keeps our safety and security in place as well.
Other questions on the goals or the readout on the goals?
I had just a comment to kind of build off of Lisa's with the all the technology. Zello on the first page of our report. What a great program. And I learned about that. I think maybe it was at one of our board meetings when the counselors came and talked about it, and I had never heard about it before because my kids don't talk to me. So it was really great, and I'm happy to see that it is being fully utilized because I think it's a great program. So
Yeah, the counselors have steadily rolled that over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, so they just keep adding tools. My son, was a recent graduate, found his what he wanted to do after school in there, because there's a career finder kind of thing, it of course tells all the important stuff like what school you can go to, how much they make every year.
Yeah.
But then the kids can do like the career, when we were younger, we did career inventories. It was like, oh, you're going to be a funeral director. Like it gives you those outcomes and they can redo it as they get older.
Wait, when you did yours came up as funeral director?
My daughters came up as funeral director. I was like, well, that doesn't say much about you, but
Very empathetic.
the seventh grade requirement for the state of Michigan is that they have an educational development plan, which we call an EDP, and that's supposed to follow them through high school. So it starts in EDP in seventh grade. The counselors do the career plan with them, and the idea is that they can be taking classes that are in line with their career interests. So they can redo the career builder. It's not like seventh grade, they have to decide and that's it. Those are the only careers you have available to you. They can redo it over time, but it helps them as they think about electives and other classes they're going to take, like what they might want to be enrolled in. So that's available in Zello, but they also use it for some course planning. They also provide them some access to.
Isn't there practice for PSAT on there as well? Or is
In
that
Zello, that's Khan Academy, most likely, which is free.
Getting them mixed up.
And we do have Khan Academy access. All of our students
Mhm.
take the PSAT in 8th grade. They get a Khan Academy account
Got it.
that connects their PSAT score directly to Khan. And then Khan Academy says, here's the things you need to work on
Yeah.
based on your PSAT score. But those aren't connected to Zello. And that is free still. After all these years, Khan is still providing that for free.
I do love that Zello also, the kids can log in at home and then they can show you what they've been working on if you have the time and you put that as a priority. But I think that seems more accessible than the previous platform was.
And years ago, this replaced a program years ago called Career Cruising that we used to use here. And Zello actually bought Career Cruising out and breathed new life into it. So it's a Michigan-based company as well.
Nice, love it.
I had some questions about, on page 1, on goals 1 and 2. I had specific questions, but I guess my broader question would be that we would address the shortfalls in the goal setting for next year.
With regards to the numbers that we hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a tradition of setting goals that may feel a little out of reach on purpose. Like, setting some of the goals to be things, because if you know that you hit 65 every year and you set your goal at 60, it just seems kind of ridiculous. So we've always pushed them a little bit out of our sights because we always want to stretch for those. What I will tell you is one of the reasons some of these numbers are down is because our 8th grade NWA scores, because we don't normally give the NWA in 8th grade here. We've been giving PSAT for years, but during COVID, they made us give it. So the kids were taking test after test after test. And it was interesting to watch our NWA scores in 8th grade compared to our PSAT scores in 8th grade. They just didn't gel with each other. So that is done and behind us. So this year will be the first year we don't. So some of our averages do take a hit because of that and have for the last couple of years. Not to use it as an excuse at all, but they're drastically different than our K-7 results where they're not taking the PSAT. So we are pushing ourselves, like to set a high school goal at 90% reading and 80% in math for college and career readiness. That's a pretty high mark to set for ourselves. But when we hit 87 and not 90, would I love to see 90? Yes. But do I want to set it at 85 next year so we can say we hit it? I don't want to do that either. I'd rather put it at 90 and us push to get to that spot. But I will tell you, and we'll do a full data review with you on September 12th meeting where you'll see NWA, PSAT, SAT, and MSTEP. You'll get a chance to see kind of where we're at. But there are always areas that we're watching. For example, I'll give you a preview that our past 10th grade, coming into 11th grade PSAT, which we've been watching for a couple of years now, continues to be a puzzler to me. Because the scores there, while there's growth, they seem to be outpaced by the grade behind them, and that's just so unusual and weird. And so we're still digging into, because when you look at some of the individual scores, we're having conversations about, well, is there a group of kids that are particularly struggling, or is it the entire what will be our current 11th grade? And it happens to be my daughter's class, and I'm like, well, it's a smaller group than some of our others. I don't know. Those are the kinds of things we do pay attention to. So when you look here and you see, we were points short of whatever it was. Sometimes we try to clump it out. Like, I don't want to give you a K-8 average just to make it look better or worse. I want to try to give you real information because, we want to be open about it. But we will at that meeting open all that data to you, try to get it to you ahead of time so you have some time to digest it, and then we can really dig into some of it and ask some of those questions.
I had a question also about since the retention piece has been removed from the third grade reading law, do you foresee approaching the way that you've been working with students who would have been retained any differently because of that? Or do you think that,
We didn't do anything differently before the retention came on. When kids were struggling, if you recall, we've always said our number compared to the third year retention way lower. So the number of kids we're identifying for support as K3 kids is higher than the number who ever come out in the wash as needing that support. The last 3 years, we have had 0 students who've been qualified. This year we had 5, all of whom received exemptions for very clear reasons, and 20 who required that kind of what they consider support. But those 20 kids were well identified long before and would have been before the third grade bill. So I don't anticipate. Now, the IRIP and everything is still in place. The individual reading plan is still expected. The only thing they removed from the bill is the retention part. So you are still expected to identify them. You are still expected to provide parent notification, individual reading plans, MTSS support. So none of that changes. The only thing that changes at the end of the year is we don't have to send out a retention letter to people who qualify.
okay.
But nothing else about the law has changed.
So in terms of how you would educate, say, those 5, that educational plan would not
Nothing
have
changes.
changed.
We were doing those things before, which is why it wasn't a big deal for us. It wasn't like, well, we better help the kids who are struggling because we were never doing that before. We just had to have some letters that went home to parents that didn't necessarily go home before. But that's not even true either. We were sending letters home letting parents know their kid qualified for support services and that they were going to be meeting with our MTSS teams. So I don't know that anything would have changed anyway, but no, I don't anticipate anything would see differently.
Oh, and another question I had was, I saw that there was not enough interest in virtual classes that were provided by NHS teachers. I was really excited about that when I
Me
heard about
too.
that. Are you saying that's
Worked
not going to
hard.
happen?
What's that?
That's not going to happen?
We didn't have enough kids sign up
I
for them.
can't believe it. I was all,
know.
I would
I
have
was
signed up
sad
for
too.
one.
Got 6 teachers to be willing to try it. We put it out there. We really tried to sell it, and we just didn't get enough to run a class. And so it was tough. So we're going to try to come at it a different way the next time. You know, perception is what matters. So for kids, it was like, well, yeah, but those virtual classes are with Northville teachers. They're going to be harder, right? Because Northville teachers are going to hold a higher standard. So if I'm going to take a virtual class, I'm going to take it with Michigan Virtual. And there was a little bit of a misconception, I think, around that. So I don't know how we overcome that, but we're not done with that. And we do have teachers who are actively interested in doing so. We put them out there. We put them in the course
I
catalog.
thought everyone would be all over not coming in for
Yeah,
one
we
week.
had, 8 and 10 kids here and there, and we just couldn't. I don't know if we got to find the right class to get started with, or if it's got to find the right teacher to get kids motivated to do it. But we're not done with it. It just didn't fly this year because,
Okay.
we also have to be, it has to be cost effective for us
Sure.
to do it as well.
Sure. Interesting.
So you think that it's not that people weren't opting for online, it's that if they were opting for online, they were choosing the Michigan Virtual.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of kids sign up for online classes.
Right, because it is so much more flexible for the kids to pace,
It is. There was that distinction as well, where they were kind of on the same time frame as a regular class, but they had some flexibility in their attendance. So we actually met last year with Novi's virtual program. We have had some conversations with them about the possibility of partnering. That's not off the table either, where we would offer some high school classes and they already offer some, and that would give our kids a larger cadre of high school classes to choose from. So what we hope to do is experiment with it this year and then go back to Novi and say, here's the success we've had. And we were going to say, well, we'll offer these. I'll offer accounting if you'll offer that. That way our kids have a bigger catalog of virtual classes to choose from. And then that, we'd work out all that agreement with attorneys and things like that. But so that's another avenue. But typically there was some of that, like, okay, but with Michigan Virtual, I can wait 6 weeks and then try to do all my work at one time, which doesn't work either, but they do it. Wherein the teacher at Northville is going to say, like, okay, well, this has got to be done. Like, it's due. Just because you're not here doesn't mean it's not due to me. I'm a human being, real person sitting in class here waiting for you. So that may have been too. Yeah. So we will talk about some of that too. I didn't like the idea of going totally self-paced and virtual, because then the question is, what's the difference between us and Michigan Virtual then, other than their Northville teachers? Wanted there to be some connection still to our our staff, when we went into COVID, the very clear message was, we want Northville teachers teaching our kids. And so, when you go to a self-paced model and our teachers are creating the course, there's really no difference between them and Michigan Virtual. Then the idea was your teacher's here, like you can get to them, you can have conversations with them, you can meet with them.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
the standard
supposed to
of good online teaching too, by the way. Is,
Right.
is having that kind of close relationship with your instructor and,
Some virtual courses that our students take that are out of our control, required by state law, they may never speak to the teacher in an entire semester. It's
Yeah.
possible that they would just go the entire semester and never actually have an interaction with that adult. They're just doing the assignments and moving forward in the
Yeah.
work. And that's required,
Yeah.
that we allow students to do that.
you've got, well,
I think when you're competing against that though,
yeah.
it's very hard because the self-pacing, even if it's not to the extreme of let me wait 6 weeks, it is like, okay, this week's, I've got 2 projects done. So if I can do 2 weeks ahead or 2 weeks behind, that flexibility, I think that's what's got to be taking a lot of the kids.
Yeah.
And it's hard to compete against
Nobody
that.
wants to sign up for the harder, more rigorous version where you have to interact a little bit with.
Well, even if it's that you get the upside of interaction, and if you want that, which I question, it's just how much flexibility. But I think it's great that you keep thinking about it, and I think it's great that at some point in COVID, I had the thought, could we bring in, like a consortium, Novi only, but like be very picky about who we partner with, and so that's very similar, and thereby create, like at one point when we switched to the online and we thought there might be only like 20 families that want to do this, like could we group? So that's an interesting concept.
And it is one of the reasons we worked with Novi, because we felt like our parents would say, there's a certain standard there.
Yeah.
They're going to expect, quality. The other thing is that Novi has a K7, K8, where it's a bell-to-bell virtual option for kids as well at a pretty reasonable price. And they do partner with several other school districts now. So those kids who go to VLAC, which is really not a bell-to-bell, nor is it a regular contact with teachers through Oakland schools, it might be a better option for some of them to be able to, if they're forced to be in a virtual environment. What I'm not trying to do is get our kids to go somewhere else though.
Yeah.
But I do want to provide that. We don't advertise VLAC that much either, but if parents come to us and they have situations, we try to provide an option for them. We probably don't have more than 6 or 8 kids in VLAC in any given year, but that is not, it's certainly not the quality of what you're getting day to day here when you have a teacher coming to your house once a week and then doing some lessons online. And with Novi, they are providing a teacher face to face throughout the day, like we were doing during COVID. So, there's things on the horizon that are possibilities. We're just continuing to look at them. I would love to see, though, Northville High School have its own virtual classes at some point. We just have to keep experimenting until we find that sweet spot.
I know I always ask Mike, okay, what's this bill that we're sending to Michigan Virtual? Like, it's a lot of money that we send to them every year.
And really, we're only required to allow students to take 2 a year, but when you multiply by the number of kids who take them, we run 1,000 to 1,200 classes a year through Michigan Virtual. And I can only imagine where they would find all those teachers if those kids were all taking classes with us. We'd be staffing, and we'd have to build a new wing under the high school if we had 1,200 extra classes being taken, even at 35 kids at a time. So, yeah, it is a lot, but it's certainly out of our hands. It is state law.
And I'm grateful for allowing us to take, innovative type of approaches, and sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if we hold ourselves back from that, and when we created Novi Virtual, the target I put out there is I wanted to put Michigan Virtual out of business because I don't think their product's great. And we focused on the mental health and well-being of kids. The kids actually come and get supplies. So the thing we liked about it when we visited, and Rebecca was there as well, was this idea that being close to their kids could go get things that they would need, be there, get support. And as Aaron said, for an elementary student, to have synchronous instruction going on for parents is a lot. I mean, that's a lot easier if your kid has to be away for an amount of time. So we're grateful that you allow us to try and to innovate. I'm not going to guarantee everything's going to work out great, but we won't know unless we try.
Kim, did you have something?
You're waiting for. Oh, okay. I guess Karen, you and I both looked at, our goals and objectives as, with educator eyes. And I actually did focus in on the scores as you did. And I know that that's a yet to come discussion. But I think what helped me when I continued reading through the document is to recognize the substantive and excellent work that's going on, and particularly in our reimagined curriculum and instruction area. And I had to note the laser focus with both the math and the reading coaches across grades and across schools, the work on unit design teams with the math and literacy coaches, and to build and share units across buildings. I just see this in this kind of vortex of intense focus in areas that are going to benefit our kids. And is a standardized exam score that all to end all in terms of what our kids are learning? No, it's just one data point. And you make that point in here too, that there are other data points that are informing your decisions about what kids need in terms of support. But, I put on that same list of substantive work, the in-depth review of secondary grading practices and this year-long comprehensive group effort that went into that. Kudos to the leadership as well as the teachers and the feedback that parents and students gave. I also noted this work on this cross-grade and cross-discipline work on supporting SEL in our kids and integrating that into what happens in the classroom. So, we know that we've got to have kids' emotional needs on the top of the list in order to help them achieve to their maximum potential. So we're trying to put all of these little elements together around our children to help them flourish, and the work is impressive, and the evidence of effort and the awareness of what it takes is based on best practices and in-depth research and collaboration between teachers, but also across buildings. So I'm proud of that. I felt, very, very good for the effort that's going into helping our kids. And I know that we've got future discussions to have, but those kinds of things, those parallel efforts that are going on in the district, help me understand, what maybe those scores were meaning and how we were paying attention to them. So I'm with you on that, Karen, really.
And I would say that, I've been working the last couple of weeks with, now that we have Dr. Zelinsky here full time, we've only had her 60 days a year with work we've been doing, and we've gotten the results we have with that little bit. For having her full time, like she has jumped in. Like some days I'm like, Carrie, you got to slow down. I mean, school hasn't even started yet. And she's already got all these wonderful things in place and all these plans and all these meetings. And even with Sarah, with our new literacy facilitator, now to double Sarah's efforts in literacy in K-5. I'm really excited. I feel like we're hitting a stride of kind of all the pieces are starting to come together now. We've got classroom environments that are top notch. We've now, with social studies being adopted, we have all of our curriculum solidly in place across the K-12 spectrum. You've got learning platforms now available and kind of viable in being worked through, like Schoology and some of our tools like MobiMax and Nuzella and other things. All of those things are going to come together. The hardest part, people will say to me, well, what's the successful one? I don't know, because we got 15 going on, and I can't tell you which one of them. I don't care. As long as it's working, I don't care which one of them is responsible. The hardest part is to figure out, do we need to get rid of one of them because we're paying money for something we don't need? But, we've seen the success we have with the implementation of some of the work we've done. I'm forever grateful to our staff, and even just this morning being a new teacher orientation and the work that Abdul and Rebecca have done in bringing in some of these really ultra talented people. Listening again this morning, every year new teacher orientation, I think we had 4 people there who are brand new teachers, like right out of college, and one of them student taught for us for a year. So I am just blown away by some of the talent that we continue to recruit here, because obviously that brings with it a lot of work. We don't have to do training them to do some of this stuff. And tomorrow we'll spend all day, Jen Lawson, one of our math teachers, and our coaches will spend time with our teachers tomorrow at New Teacher Education, getting them ready. Like, they'll hit the ground running, and that's what makes this work. So I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the pieces are coming together to see some of these things really come into place. We probably wouldn't have been this late if COVID hadn't happened, but couldn't help that.
Jim, did you have a comment?
Yes, I had one question. So page 21 or page 10 of 17 of our goals. We talk about mental health counselors, MTSS, and PBIS, and on the, which is item number 6. And on the right-hand side, the results on it, we talk about all 3 secondary buildings working, revamp, and revitalize PBIS and make it consistent, right? Well, I think that's awesome, right? The thing I wanted to ask about is we put tons and tons of work into PBIS years ago. We used to talk about it all the time. Now PBIS is just kind of, it's the base.
Mhm.
We don't talk about it much because it's just the way we do business in that, which is good, but I almost miss talking about it. When we're revitalizing it, what does that mean when we're revitalizing PBIS? I mean, I think that's awesome. I'd like to see more of it, but I just kind of want to understand that one because we've ingrained it so much into our system. It's just, it's the base of the pyramid and we don't talk about it as much.
So actually, I'm really glad you asked that question because part of the way they're re-energizing it and making it consistent has to do with the implementation of Be Nice next year.
Okay.
But just to give you a broader answer, maybe it's over explaining it, but it'll give some context. If you saw in the district goals update that we talk about an SEL framework.
Yep.
So I was part of that group, but actually Sandra Brock and Molly Garcia are the ones that really led that group. And it was from members across the district at elementary level. And it really talked about how CASEL is our foundational work in terms of SEL. So what I mean by that is that CASEL is not a curriculum. CASEL are competencies that we want every student that graduates from Northville High School to have when they leave. And then we have all of these SEL initiatives because it's grown. We have so many different initiatives, but we don't want people to look at it as one more thing on the plate. We want to integrate. So CASEL are those competencies we want kids to exit with. And then Leader in Me, Zones, PBIS, Be Nice, Second Step, Prepare You. Those are all the tools and curriculums that get us those competencies. So that's kind of the framework we're working under.
Okay.
So we do still talk about PBIS, but it's because our SEL offerings have grown so much and we want to make sure that they're all integrated.
Okay.
So the next step to that committee will probably be, because this last year we spent a lot of time kind of identifying this framework, and I think it's linked in your update. And then we also had a group of teachers, because Leader in Me is used a lot at the elementary level, developing alignment between Leader in Me and Second Step, because that's also used a lot. And probably their follow-on work will be with more of this integration and alignment, which includes PBIS.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Means, Hillside, and the high school are still on the PBIS grant through the county. And Meads Mill, I'll just take as an example. They're going to be integrating their Be Nice program into PBIS.
Okay.
So those students that are part of that PBIS group, Be Nice will be integrated with that and aligned with that. Because it Be Nice is a student-led initiative.
So like an example, so how I hear about PBIS as a, parent in Meads the most, and I might just understand it better because I sit at the board, but is like points, rewards, and like sort of the cultural granting of positive reinforcement for positive behaviors. So like there might be the festival at the end of the year, and you can bring your tickets that you've been granted and turn them in for something. Or there might be a school assembly, and if they have enough, they can dunk the principal or whatever, and they can. So I hear a lot of PBIS being positive. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's the negative side too, of what it is, but a lot of hey, I see you being nice today. I see you lifting someone up or inviting someone to sit by you. So if it makes sense as I'm hearing it, but I want to make sure I'm to Jim's point, is the idea that you would start to positively reward, that's doing PBIS, particular things maybe it's be nice, or maybe it's a castle, one of the 7, castle competencies that I see. Is that the idea, is that you're sort of stitching those together that way?
Some of what you said, yeah.
Okay.
So PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Intervention Support. So you're absolutely right. It is shaping that behavior and those behavioral expectations in a positive way. And they do use points or dollars or that kind of thing for reinforcement for activities. Be Nice is that mental health action plan. It was meant to be that missing component. So PBIS, a lot of the concepts are aligned with everything we do and develop those castle competencies. But what was missing was that mental health common language and that mental health action plan. Be Nice adds that. So it's not identical, but it aligns. And it's going to be, because Be Nice is student-led, that same group of students that are part of that PBIS initiative, that leader group of PBIS, they're going to be the ones helping the teachers at Meads. We're just taking that as an example. There's 3 teachers at Meads that are leading those kids with that Be Nice initiative as well. Does that make sense?
And I mean, this is what ties me back into our conversation at Committee of the Whole a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, right? And I don't know what we decided, the Northville community system or the more Northville community process, but
We're working on it.
when we look at the things we've put in place, we've built with Leader in Me, PBIS, and all these other things, we've built a system where we're educating kids in kind of what our expectations and how to properly react. And because of that process that's been built in the years, we see a lot less, I'll say, really negative behaviors. I mean, there's always negative things that happen, but the really serious cases that you see maybe around the state or other schools, it's a really, really small percentage for us, right? And I think the reason that happens, part of it's the community, but part of it is this system or practice or process, whatever we're going to call it, that we've built that kind of, it's that positive behavior moving forward. We've kind of encouraged kids and say, this is the kind of behavior, this is how you react to things. And so therefore we've nipped a lot of this really, serious negative stuff, negative behavior before it ever gets started, right? And so I was thinking about that and then thinking about PBIS because it's a foundational piece now. Like Leader in Me is a foundational piece. It's just like, and if you look around the state, the vast majority of schools are just not where we're at with this kind of stuff. And I do think it's unique and it drives a different behavior and it drives a significant lesser amount of serious
And also,
negative behavior.
it's rather than a deficit approach, it's really an approach where we want to help give our kids the tools to regulate their emotions, to know that they're believed in, that they can make good choices. We can show them how to make good choices. And I would say that all of this foundational work, what's going to be stunning this year is our RP work. And we are coming up with a different moniker for how we're going to talk about that. But the feedback that we've received, we had a heck of a week last week with our administrators and training, but all that foundational work that was done, it's now system-wide through an entire district. I think is going to be stunning. So I appreciate you lifting that up. I'll say it again. My belief in an excellent district is not simply test scores, but how do we teach our kids to live the life they deserve to live, whatever that is, and to feel good about themselves and to be good to each other and good to themselves. So I'm super grateful for all the foundational work that's been here and in your interest as a board and in so many different modes. If you take a look at on page 26, is it, yeah, it's 15 of 17. I want to just recognize the people to my left. So Colt and across from me and Megan. But Colt really worked hard to reflect on the year. And I want to just affirm that everything you see in this document is 100% accurate from what I've seen. And you've seen me mention this before, but I want to read this because this is off who wrote this or not, but this is just awesome. So this is on the bottom right-hand corner, July 2023 update, 22-23 years of focus. Goal 1, fiscal stability. This year, we have been relentless in tracking down and applying for every grant possible. We added hundreds of thousands of dollars, close to $1 million, in 98C, 310, and HRA. We also successfully managed new and existing funds in 31N, 31A, 35A, Title I, Title II, Title III, 104D, 11T, ESSER, and other COVID-related funding. If there is other money out there and we do not have it, it is because we do not qualify for it. Each of these grants requires a great deal of application, financial stewardship, and reporting. Mike's in the middle of an audit right now, and everything that I just read is really a pain to keep track of, and you do a heck of a job at it. This has all been done with excellence while safeguarding the general fund as often as allowable. And what I've mentioned to you as a board before, I could throw a dime on the third floor, and these guys would find it in 10 seconds, I swear. Aaron got a call from Wayne Risa saying, hey, a lot of other districts didn't take advantage of about 200K. Could you put something together quickly and we'll get it to you? And that's because of the amount of trust that's been built up. And that's because of the professionalism of the people to my left, as well as the board, previous boards, previous employees. And as we go into our cow discussion on the 19th, make sure you take a little bit of time to look at your victories as a team and understand that this isn't hyperbole. This isn't anything more than the truth. And I'm really proud of them. And I'm proud of you guys as a board, frankly, because I know you keep an eye on this. We came out of a finance meeting. So again, any other questions you may have, please feel free to email the appropriate people, copy Megan and I to make sure. And there's no question that's too small, genuinely.
So really appreciate that, again, the opportunity to have time to percolate with this so that we can, further digest, have Lindsay back. And I'm looking forward to the 19th. It's always a really important meeting and really valuable.
Can
So
I
it's
just
good.
ask just a question with how it works within the board? Because I'm not just interested in answers, I'm also interested in other people's questions and how we have access to that. If you have a question to say Aaron or something, can that come to the rest of us, his answer?
Yeah, maybe you guys could gather them for us, like what some
I
of the
don't mean to
things were that
create
you
extra
fielded?
work. I'm just literally wondering how, because we're not in a meeting, how that is distributed.
And we can copy each other as long as people then don't engage with, well, I think it would be good if we did it this way, right? Like as long as it's like, here's my list of questions or here's some concerns I have, then that's also fine. But
If they all copy Megan or one central figure, because if you ask a question of Mike and not me, like if one central figure has them all, then we can copy them and provide you like a list of all the questions that were asked, and we can make sure that Megan's copied on our answer so that she can include the answer with that if it's something that we've shared out, or we can share the answer at the next meeting. And I will tell you as well that when our goals come out, we also include an addendum with a glossary of terms, so you know what all those things mean. We don't have it usually in our update, but it is in our goal document, so people who are reading it know what all that stuff means.
And I know Vice President Prescott is safeguarding us from open meetings and stuff like that. So that's why I think the notion of cycling through Megan and then being able to provide those is a good thing.
The other thing, Karen, that you'll get is that when we do the sort of the speed dating or the round robin, where I might talk to Mike in this session, or I might talk to her about, but then they are taking notes and they do kind of a readout at the end of like, here were some of the things that we're hearing or that came out and developed in themes. So you do get some of the like cross-pollination of what other people's concerns and thoughts were, which is why there's then another meeting where they've taken back those comments, digested them, and then we now see kind of something for us to think about voting on.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a process, but this is the strategic and policy setting core function that I think it makes sense. It's a good process.
What's most
helpful.
helpful to us is as we're writing the goals, if you look at this and you see something that you think, wow, this needs to be continued, or it needs to have a different focus, or how is this going to look in the next round, or hey, let's stop beating this dead horse. Those are the kinds of things we want to know. Because what I'll do is that document will go to the principals as well. All of Ed Council will review that goal document. We get feedback from lots of different places before we bring it for a final resolution. So if anything we have in advance of that helps us to craft it properly. We'll add things like whatever we end up calling RP will be added as a goal for this coming year, and that'll be part of what we do. The community wellness and partnership piece will be added in. All that stuff will be part of our upcoming goals. The next round of work with 11T as it relates to the library books. I mean, they'll all be the things that'll be, because what we focus on is what we measure. So anything you can give us as far as feedback is that in advance, and then we'll take your feedback afterwards where you say, I just wish there was more here, or I don't understand this, because these goals are meant to be for the public, not just for us. So they are published, so they need to also make sense to the public. Like if I look at these blue areas, the focus areas, I should know what the district's working on right now. It should be clear to you as the public.
And I think we use it in superintendent evaluation. We use it, I'm sure Dr. Weber uses it with his team as he looks at their, their evaluation and so on. So it's, pretty useful. All right, is everybody ready to go on to our next item? Dr. Weber, is there other elements of your report?
Nope, that was actually all of that conversation was super helpful. So thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Did you have something?
No
Before I
public
go?
comment.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is public comment. So this is an opportunity for anybody to speak to the board about anything that might concern or interest you or want us to raise our attention. You have 3 minutes to just have your say. Welcome anyone. Any green cards, Megan? Anything? Okay. There is another opportunity later in the meeting, so that will come up here before too long. The next item that we have is our certification of delegates and alternates for MASB, or MASB, our school boards, or the sort of parent organization. And Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you for our motion to present this, and then we can have some discussion.
Well,
Or should we maybe discuss
yeah, I was
the
going to
people?
say,
Yeah.
because it says that I need to bring forward the people.
So what this is going to be is that every year we designate the voters and then the alternates in case the delegates can't attend. To attend the delegate assembly in Lansing, this year it's going to be on November 9th. It'll be at 7 o'clock. And those who are able to attend can go. I'm absolutely happy to be one of the people this year that goes. I just love to go with somebody if someone wants to drive to Lansing.
So the way I think it works is literally there's enough for all of us to be on this list. The question just, where do you want to be are you likely to attend? And therefore we'll put you on the voting delegate side. If you kind of go, probably not gonna attend unless something blows up, we'll go on the alternate side.
Could you,
Really,
how
all
does
seven
this
of us
tie
can
into
go
the
there.
leadership conference? Is this, if you go to this, are you attending that leadership conference? Is this a separate thing in and of itself?
I think it's separate, but I think they might be at similar time. Like it might be part of a larger thing. And I'm
Yeah, it is.
I'm realizing that now that I said this, that is a day that I cannot do. Now that I was like, I'm happy to go. Who would like to go with me? I apologize to everybody.
Drive.
Yeah.
You were driving.
That was a very quick 360, wasn't it? Did you get whiplash? I apologize. I apologize.
I will say many years, we actually don't have anyone
Yes.
actually attend.
And
We just still have to do this.
there are people who, maybe I'd go if I can, but like it's not, there are years we've not had people.
Well, I feel like as the MASB liaison that I should put my name down as a voting delegate, and I'm happy to do that.
You know what? I love going to Lansing with you, Karen.
So I'm going to put you guys as voting, and then
I'll be an alternate.
Jim and I can be alternates. How's that sound?
We need
Does
to
anyone
all-
else
we
want
need
to
to have
do it?
all your names on there.
Okay. Do you
Okay.
want to be a voter or an alternate?
I'd like to be an alternate if possible.
And how about Dr. Kim Boytel?
I'll be a voter.
Okay.
And we'll put Lindsay on as a voter as well.
Yes.
Just because it's not
She's
here
not
to.
here, so we'll put her down.
That's what you get, Lindsay. Okay. All right. So Karen, I think you're just going to still read it as the people listed below, but to read it out to make sure we're on the same page, our voting delegates will be Meyer, Stewart, Campbell, Boytow, and Wilson, and our alternates would be Prescott, Missouri, and McIntyre. All right. So
All right.
with that, we can do the motion.
Okay, so I bring forth motion 16, that the individuals listed below be selected to represent Northville Public Schools at the 2023 Michigan Association of School Board Delegate Assembly at the Lansing Center on Thursday, November 9th at 7 p.m. in the event that individual board members are able to attend as presented.
Support.
All right. Thank you. I have a motion properly presented by trustee Meyer, supported by trustee Missouri. Any other conversation or comment on that one? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And it'll carry. The next one we have is authorization to enter into a cost-sharing agreement with the city of Northville for our school liaison officer. And this person would be assigned at Hillside. And I can read in the motion. It is motion 17. It would be that the board authorize the administration to enter into a cost-sharing agreement with the city of Northville for the school liaison assignment at Hillside Middle School. And any support before we have conversation? Okay, so I presented it and Jim Missouri supported it. And I think we're turning it over to Mr. Zoll.
Okay,
So just to provide some context, first of all, because before this meeting, and I really appreciate the board members sending various questions, and I received, I think, just about a question from just about everybody, so I appreciate it. The other thing too is I just wanted to mention is that to provide some context around this agreement, one of the common questions was it reviewed by our legal counsel? And actually, it was more than that. We sent it over. We sent over the contract we presently have with Northville Township, which is about 2.5 pages. That's the one from back in 2018. Right now, when our legal counsel Dana took it from Clark Hill, she basically rewrote it, and to a large extent, what's been happening, I think, throughout Michigan is a lot of school districts have been acquiring or bringing on board school liaison officers. So in various things, situations have arisen, and they've tried to account for that in this agreement. So nevertheless, I think there's still some board members had questions. So I think what I'll do is just kind of reference the agreement in reference to the questions that you had. And Sarah, I think that was the first one to actually ask some questions, and probably, I guess, direct your attention to page 34 in the packet and page 6 of 9 in the agreement itself. And right now, that language basically indicates that, and this is, by the way, is also, I want to mention, this is the contract for the city of Northville, SLO. And our intention is basically to use this as the template to basically update the Northville Township template or agreement. So, but on page 6 of 9, on page 34 in the packet, item number E3, it says that the SLOs may only interview students on non-school related criminal issues with the consent in the building, with the consent of a building administrator. And so we reached back out to Dana on this particular point because this was one of the questions Sarah had. And just her thinking on this was actually more from the perspective of a student. So what she said, basically she wouldn't want to have happen or is have an SLO basically take into custody, handcuff a student in front of, other students or other within the building without having the advanced knowledge of the building administrator. So it was really from that perspective, that lens, that why she put that in here. That said, she did offer up, she said, I realize that provision or that item number 3, the board might not want that. So she did actually provide some alternate language that would replace item number 3, which would basically say the SLO may not interview students on non-school related criminal issues in a school facility. So it would really be it was alternate language, kind of board discretion about how we would want to do it. But she did explain the intent, at least behind the original language she has included in here. So that was, I don't know if that answers that question or not. If the board has a preference to use the alternate language, we could certainly substitute that in here.
Ms. Prescott, what was your question or concern specifically regarding that?
Yeah, so you'll hear the next one. I mean, so my concerns are with the liability of the district and with the things that, nationally go wrong and then people are on CNN about it or Fox News about it, right? Because something goes wrong. And in number 1, we have the ability of the officer to question a child about something that's going on in the school, something that has a nexus to the school, something that's on the school grounds, like that's in E1. One of the things that concerned me was just putting our administrators in the position of calling balls and strikes on when and how someone is interviewed on alleged criminal activity not related to the school in our buildings. And it's not that we're saying they can or can't do it. The way it's written is, well, it's up to Katie, to decide, or up to Tony to decide, or and I just think that puts a lot on them, but even if it emotionally doesn't put a lot on them, it creates a nexus of our oversight on that decision. And my worry is that that then has legal ramifications, that the more sort of we're the ones who are supervising and overseeing what does and doesn't happen, the more likely it is that we are involved in the lawsuit that follows, if there is a lawsuit or something serious that happens. So I get and I understand the concern with putting a child into handcuffs on campus.
Mhm.
But I also think if someone's doing something dangerous, that officer is allowed by law to put someone in handcuffs. I mean, they're going to put someone in handcuffs or arrest somebody or tackle them or do all the things that they can do, break up a fight, whatever. They're going to put hands onto people according to state law, like no matter what we say. This is about, because, and that's handled under one, right? Because that's happening at the school.
Right.
It's like, why are you going to question Tommy about, did he steal a pack of cigarettes last week at the CVS in our building? That doesn't seem, it's like, why would that need to happen? And why would our people be saying yes or no to that? So, you know, it really went to the legal, stepping more into the police's business. Like either they have the authority to do a thing or they don't. But I don't know why we would kind of like become the umpire for that, especially around a non-school related item.
Yeah.
So there might be some role of the administrator, though, to ensure that the parents are duly notified or broker some kind of contact and involvement of a parent that maybe the police officer wouldn't think about initially.
Well, I think the risk factor is that, and I kind of agree with Sarah. If it's something that happens in our school, then yes. But this is something, this deals with an issue of something happened not related to our school. It was outside someplace else. And the less we're involved about something that has no relation to school, the better off we are, right? And so if the police want to,
Take somebody in custody for some.
they can come to the school and say, I know this kid's here, and they can go do that. That is
Different,
police
yeah.
decision and police responsibility. The question is, do we want to be involved in that when whatever the offensive behavior was had nothing to do with our school? And I think that's a place where we do not want to get in the middle of that. Or be viewed and somehow be held later on liable for that.
It's just not our, and I don't know.
That's
I
a
mean,
good point.
in general, it's like, I don't know, is our schools the place where children get interviewed by the police? Is that what our school buildings are? Because I don't know. It's like there are other places they could go, you know, question the criminal. And again, if it has a school nexus, then fine. No question, right? Like, did you put that in the locker? Is that your gun? Is that, I mean, like, you know, did you hit him? I mean, I get that. But if it's not, I don't really want people to be taken out of class for a criminal. If there's a bomb and they have the right under the law, they're going to come get them, you know? But I think they should take them to the police station. I don't know. Are you concerned? Do you have a?
So I just wanted to put a little context around something that Dr. Campbell-Boytel said, and then maybe put some perspective into the room as well. And I know Abdul him and I have shared similar positions as principals in non-traditional settings, where this often happened. And that's not our setting. We recognize that. But first things first, if anybody comes and is asking to speak with one of our students that is not a parent or guardian, the very first call that is made is to the parent or guardian. We very much protect the rights and privacy of all of our students and make sure that our parents are part of that conversation. I have sat and waited many times while the administration made contact with the parent just so that they were aware, hey, this is going on. We're investigating, we're doing this, unpolice related. So I know that our buildings take that very seriously and make sure that stakeholder is part of that conversation. But I think that Mike pointed out that, when Dana put this together, she was thinking about all of the things that happen across the state. And these are things that do happen. And while there's not a nexus point to the school, in communities that Abdul and I have been allowed to serve in. Sometimes things that are happening in the neighborhoods do find their way into the school building. There isn't any evidence to support that at the moment, but we know how those feelings and emotions can erupt. And the de-escalation piece of that I see E3 addressing and helping the overall community with is helpful. Not always something that is agreed to, because administrators, to your point, we don't want administrators having to make those decisions sometimes. So I guess that's just my point of clarity around this. I think that this language is it's throwing paint at the whole wall. I think if the board chooses to go with something a little different than what's here, I think that's okay too.
It says, and the student's parent or guardian, not just the building administrator on that.
It does say that in there, and I just wanted to reinforce
Yeah.
with the board that, we take that very seriously.
The third one, though, is the option that Mike gained for us yesterday. That looks like the cleanest one, if that's what the board would want, which is SLOs may not interview students on non-school related criminal issues in a school facility, full stop.
And I'll say, there's always an exception to that rule, right? If something happens and the police officer believes there's imminent danger, they come in and do what they're gonna go out and do.
I mean, it could say except as, otherwise required by law. I mean, our contract doesn't change we can write any contract we want. It doesn't change the law. So, I mean, I think it could certainly say that and be clear on that. I just think, maybe it's worth understanding her thoughts on indemnity, because I don't understand how indemnity isn't in here. Because that's like the related.
Okay, so we'll circle back to that. We'll come back to this other one.
Yeah.
So with regard to indemnification, we asked Dana about that. And basically what Dana said is that both the school district and municipalities have got governmental immunity. And she said that neither one of us really have the authority to indemnify. So she said that's why she thought that basically having the statement that's on page 7 at the top that says each party shall be responsible for the acts and omissions of their respective employees, she felt that kind of covered it, because if we put in some indemnification, number one, is most likely going to be two-way. It's not if we go and say we want the city to indemnify the district, they're probably going to say, most likely, well, we want it the other way around, that the school district will indemnify the city. And to Dana's point, what she was saying is that in both cases, neither one of us have the power actually to do that. So she said, why put it in the agreement?
Can you help me understand not having the power to indemnify? The
Pardon me, I'm
Board
sorry.
of Education under state law has the power to enter any contract it wants to enter into. So if we want to indemnify you for, acts or omissions, we can.
Yes, what Dana has told us, when we have contracts with vendors, quite frequently, they'll try to, in our contracts with them, they'll try to put it in that we will indemnify them for something or other. And what we've been told from our legal counsel is that we, through the Michigan Constitution, don't have that power to indemnify. So oftentimes in those situations when a vendor will say, well, we want a provision that says you will indemnify us, we will usually preface that statement with something like to the effect that,
To the extent possible.
as stipulated by Michigan law, it's much to what you said, Sarah, so we would preface that statement.
I can talk to her about it, but I understand the government cannot contract out its duties. So maybe that's what she means. But you can certainly gain indemnity. And the idea that there's government immunity, okay, that only includes if there's not gross negligence.
Right.
So if there's an alleged intentional wrongful act or any alleged gross negligent act, that's what people cause people to sue, is that they think someone has been grossly negligent or intentionally tortious. Governmental immunity then doesn't apply. It also doesn't apply to individuals. So I mean, Dr. Weber and this board are the only people. All of y'all can be sued. Tony can be sued. The teachers can be sued. The counselors can be sued. And they are in Oxford, to my just complete shame and horror of my entire profession. There are teachers who shut the door to save lives, and they're being sued individually because someone was in the hall on the wrong side of the door. So, brilliant lawyers decided, let's go sue that poor lady who had to make that decision in that moment. So that's how far governmental immunity didn't help those people. And I guess my concern is with, just having, there's just a different set of things happening with police officers than with, teacher Jane in the hallway. And so, but if I'm wrong and it's just not possible to indemnify, maybe the words are talking past each other because maybe it's, pay for the legal costs of or whatever. But for the board's benefit, my concern is we do not retain the power to train, to discipline, to quality control. I mean, that's really handled by the police. So if there's some error, which is very unlikely, but I mean, that's what lawyers exploit. If there's some error of judgment or some error of training or some error of equipment or whatever it may be, we can't train up to that. We can't be our amazing selves and go to the nth degree of checking everything because they're not our employee. And so if we don't get to control the quality piece on the front end, but we have all the liability on the back end, that's where I see the disconnect that I'm concerned with. So, maybe I should just, better understand that for my own, because I appreciate that I'm also, way down in the weeds, but.
Okay. I went online and I kind of did some searching of some of the other SLO agreements that I found online, and I did find one that basically used the same kind of the exact words that you used. Something to the effect that, to the extent permitted by law, the parties would indemnify each other. Basically, that's kind of what this language was. So I don't know if. Dana did offer that up, saying that, that's something that we could insert in there. But again, she just pointed it out that because she just said, at least from her view, that neither one of us have that power to do so. So
Okay. Well, I mean, the scenario that I'm thinking of, like, 13-year-old gets, the police come to the school and wants to talk to 13-year-old, and the authorities are like, in the school say, go ahead. And that turns out to be an illegal seizure of the child. That brings us to the two things and weaves them together, right? Because the police officer did the interview, but maybe our administrator, quote, let it happen. And so, like, this idea that each party is responsible for the acts and omissions of their own people doesn't really help us with the fact that this interview happened on our turf and our administrator was made responsible for it in E3. And so that's why I was trying to just separate as much as I could, like the policing from the teaching, because our administrators have so much else to do, and I don't even know what we tell them, and what do we tell them? Like, when do you allow it? When do you not? Right. So those were my.
Well, perhaps what we do is that, back to the first point, that language, that alternate language, SLOs may not interview students on non-school related criminal issues in a school facility unless there was a specific emergency or something of that nature.
I think there is a unless. If there's an imminent danger, or if there's whatever the proper word is.
Yeah.
But we want to separate things that have nothing to do with the school from happening at the school. That's kind of my thought as well.
I know I keep thinking about situations that I feel like maybe the community is a little bit different in terms of the situations that might come up, but I am thinking about situations that might get handled because the student is at school and the investigation hasn't been able to happen because of various things that prevent investigations from happening. Right?
Yeah, and this is I'm a lawyer, so I don't feel sorry saying it. Like, we're a bunch of people around up in here that know how to find a lawyer and, bring a lawsuit. So I just.
So there's that piece too, right? That based on our community.
And people are not going to be happy about their kid being yanked in and interviewed. Now, I'm really glad to hear that parents get called, because that is not necessary. That is not required in all circumstances. And I just think it's wrong. I mean, they're a minor child.
For sure.
So that's really great that that's the situation. What do you guys think makes sense? Should I just table this? Should I just,
I do think, I would agree that I don't like putting the onus on the building administrators to make a call in, a difficult moment. I don't, you have something to say, Abdul. Go ahead and say it.
Just my experience as a principal in a different type of environment. And I can say as a principal, I had to do that has happened several times. Now, correct, if they come in with a warrant, something like that, hey, nothing I can do about it. I took my position as I was the parent for that child. I called the parent. Nothing happened unless the parents okayed it. And then I was there to try to protect the rights of that child. So I would tell them to be quiet, stop talking, things of that nature. But what I saw happen most of the time, the parents allowed it to happen. The parents knew the kid was into something. And the parents allowed it to happen at the school because it was a much safer place. They felt more comfortable with it happening at the school than them being taken down to the police station. Going down to the police station or going down to a holding cell, it became much easier for the police to get the information. Now, it never ended up being anything where they had to arrest the child or anything, but I never did it without the parent saying, yes, it's okay for them to talk to my child. Because it ended up being less stressful for the child to do it in a safe place where he at least had somebody protecting them a little bit versus them taking them and doing it somewhere else. It's kind of my 2 cents about that.
well, let me put cards on the table, because why I ran for this board many years ago was because of a case that I couldn't believe had happened involving South Lyon schools. And this is where Melissa's point hits the road, and where you might feel differently as an administrator. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. So in this case, there was an allegation against a parent of abuse. Okay, and so the school decided what we wouldn't want to involve, and the police came to the school because they couldn't go anywhere else to get the kid, because they can't go home because they're investigating the parent and they don't want the parent to know. And they came to the school on purpose. And then the school is put in the position of, are you going to call the parent and tell the parent that they're being investigated for abuse of their kid? Or are the police here or whatever? And so the police came in and they interviewed a 13-year-old child without a parent there and without any administrator. And they then can do what they can do, which is completely constitutional. And law enforcement is a hard job. But you know what law enforcement can do? They can lie to children, and they can lie to other people. And they can tell you, actually, we have the sexual abuse of you and your parent on tape, 13-year-old. And that's what they did. They did that. That occurred. So the administrator's hard thing is that in the neighborhood beef that everybody's, or in the stealing a pack of cigarettes, I get why that seems low stakes. But the difficulty is that turned out to be a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the school district in which it paid many millions of dollars. It had many millions of dollars in defense costs. And that's because there's a complicated reality to it, but like basically the child was nonverbal and someone was writing the allegations for the child.
Oh, that's a whole different level.
Okay, but what's the school gonna do? They don't know. And so it's like, oh my God, the parent, and we got to help this kid, and we're acting in loco parentis, and and maybe you're so. Okay, I mean, the school paid millions of dollars, and I was beside myself. I was like, where were any kind of legal thinking or any kind of, taking care of the 13-year-old who, was really messed up because of what happened there. Wow. That was the brother of the alleged victim. So anyway, it's maybe it's because I've seen things and you've seen things, and we're all reacting from things we've seen, right? Like Rebecca's seen things. I think there are situations where as an administrator, you would like, well, maybe the parent shouldn't be here. Like, oh my gosh, and I don't know if I should call them. And then we're in discretion land where I think I appreciate the point about the softer environment of a school, but it also makes my skin crawl to make the softer environment of our school a place where we now question children as potential criminals too.
Right.
So I think there's some, yin and yang to that.
And what I'll say is that district was not South Lyon. It is an Oakland County district, but I was in South Lyon for 12 years, and
Do I keep saying South
it
Lyon?
starts with a W.
It's
Walled Lake.
Walled Lake.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
But sorry, I'm
Because
just
you were
protecting you from
remember?
like a South Lyon person suing you for defaming the district.
Remember when
And
I
don't
was like,
wanna
were
be
you in
linked to it,
It
Prescott.
was Walled Lake. I apologize. It was Walled
And
Lake.
that's part of it. But
Walled
so
Lake
the most important thing that I think is a former high school principal, middle school principal, listening to Rebecca and Abdul as well, is in looking at this, the parent would always be called. Not allowing we all want to protect our kids, and we do take it very seriously. And I don't want the kid to go home and say, oh, yeah, by the way, Sergeant Prescott came by today and talked to me for 3 hours, and the school never contacted that family.
But you would call
and
a
asked.
parent if they were alleged to be
If-
doing
well, I
a
would-
crime to the kid?
Well, if we look at the language that was submitted, it's the administrator and the parent both need to agree, not just the administrator.
Okay, I mean,
on
if
that
that's-
part of it. And so the parent piece is there. But again, it's the pleasure of the board as far as if you want to divorce the notion of that completely, then that language, the alternate language we were given, I think looks the cleanest to me. Abdul's got his basis of it, which is very much so in different communities than ours, that he wanted to make sure that kid wasn't going into a situation with no kind of protection whatsoever. We're also lucky and the kids that Abdul served were lucky that he has his JD. So he has his notion of what's going on there. The kids that Rebecca served were fortunate because in the HR world and the intern, she knows the law very clearly as well. Not every student's going to have the benefit of one of these two there. So the first bit of language, the parent would have to be contacted. The administrator would not be calling that ball or strike. But if we wanted to divorce ourselves of that completely, then that's the option that I believe Dana provided, correct? So that's really the decision that needs to be made.
So for clarity, the opposite is that a officer would, instead of talking to the student at the school, would take the student out of the school to the police department or something like that. That's the alternate, because we're talking about non-school related criminal.
Go to their house.
Well, but they could also come onto school property, right, and take the child.
I mean, that's hard because you have to put a kid under arrest to do that. So if
That's the only way that kid's
that's
going
the
out.
problem is that like this is more often, not necessarily, but it's more often going to be just investigatory.
Mhm.
And so, but they could go to their house, they can go to the sidewalk, they can go to, ask their parents first. I mean, it's interesting to me that what we're setting up here is I came to the school why are they coming to the school to do this? It's just, but anyway, yeah, to answer your question.
Well, I would guess based on the
why can't they go to
discussion,
their
they're
house?
coming to the school for access that they might not have otherwise been able to gain. That's what I'm getting from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah. Why can't you gain access at their house?
I don't know.
But anyway,
Abdul, something else? you
I
wanted to
think she said it perfectly. It's access, and also if you have a resource officer there, there's a hope that the resource officer can help facilitate the investigation easier because of a relationship where the person knows that officer. So I'm not gonna say they're exploiting
So
that.
by changing this, we're kind of changing the role of the officer themselves. So we're saying that, because from what you're saying, then the school liaison officer would be the one facilitating that conversation. Whereas if we don't allow it, then it would be a police officer from the force that's doing
So-
that.
I'll just be blunt. I've had situations where multiple police officers have come for the same student, and then they would kind of try to the bottom line is they're trying to get some information. So they're going to do whatever they can, to her point, who is the best person here to get this information out to this child? So most of the time it fell on my SRO, because my SRO, I was at high school. So again, that's a different beast also than dealing with a middle school or elementary. So the SRO was the one that would go and talk to the student. She happened to have the right mindset, so she also was protective of the students also, which I wouldn't only allow things to go so far. And then if a kid started going someplace, I told them to.
So you sat in.
I sat in the entire time.
Do our people sit in?
I don't know that. I can't. Yeah, I don't speak to that. But it was.
So like,
In any investigation where the SRO is talking with a student
Yeah.
after the parent has been advised that a conversation is going to happen, or can it happen, the principal is there. If it's not the principal, then it's either Abdul or I.
And that makes perfectly sense for any incidents that are related to the school.
yeah,
But if it's something that has nothing to do with the school,
Mhm.
and police officers are coming for purely the point of access to the kid for investigation, it's not an arrest.
It's a
You know,
sticky.
it puts us in a really bad situation. And I want to protect kids, but I want to protect the district too.
Can I just ask a question of clarification? Is SLO because it's a K-8 facility officer, is it just SRO? Because are these interchangeable, SLO and SRO?
I think it's just different terms.
Yeah,
We see.
yeah.
I was a school resource officer, school
They're the
liaison.
same thing?
Same thing.
Okay, okay. I'm wondering if the community's gonna ask that if we talk about this after, the contract sign, why have
Yeah,
an
we might
SLO
not
instead
do
of
it
an
right.
SRO?
we get going on one way of saying it, and then we say that. I guess
It's a sticky.
the point that you're making, which is such a lovely one about protecting kids, it puts you in a position of, well, Abdul, you didn't protect the kid well enough.
Yes.
Or you participated in, because the principal, here's how I would argue it, because the principal was there, the child didn't feel that they could leave. The authority of the school was saying, sit here and do this interview. So that makes it into an arrest. And if you don't have a warrant and you don't have probable cause, you have arrested a child without a warrant or probable cause, which is a constitutional violation with uncapped punitive damages and no governmental immunity. So that's a lovely thing you were doing to help those people, but if it turns the wrong way,
Right.
it's a mess. And it's, because you have a legal degree, maybe you can do it, but
Well, and is I think what you just brought up, Vice President Prescott, is the reality of public educators, regardless of any of this. You yourself used an example where a teacher was trying to do the right thing in Oxford, and with all due respect, attorneys pounced, and you have Ven Johnson there trolling and destroying the lives of public educators because she made a call to shut a door. And I would say that the people that I have a privilege of working beside are going to do what they believe is best without your knowledge base and the stuff that you've seen. And unfortunately, that's where that pain comes in and can be really difficult. I would see this as a situation, the only time that they would come to even question a kid, the administrator doesn't make the call, the parent's going to be called on that, but is it a situation where there's an imminent threat that they have to come to the school? And if that's the case, to me, I would hope they would just take the kid with the parent, obviously, in that situation. If there's a potential fight or somebody with a weapon waiting outside the school, something of that nature. And we have to look at the extreme and the polarized parts of it, but the vast majority of these aspects, again, the parent would be part of that. It wouldn't be the administrator calling that, but completely understand if the language that was sent to us today was something that you wanted. But I just want to put in the room, every single day, public educators in this district and across the state, we know that we're not going to be protected. We know that there are people out there that are going to come after us for doing the right thing, and we're still going to do it. It's how we're wired. We're not reckless. We're not silly about it. But you really lift up something that is why we're in a crisis of finding people to educate our kids right now. And as a board, what you're trying to do is you have to protect our institution, and you have to protect the people that you've also been elected, our educators, to help support as well. And so that threshold is something that you will have to make a decision on. And I think that secondary language there is something that is, to the points that you've all made, is the cleanest way to go about it.
I think what I'm going to cotton on to is it's clean, right? Like it doesn't, like how do we apply this rule and do I open the door? Do I close the door? It's a terrible choice either way. It takes it off their plate. That's what Melissa, I think, was saying that I
So too.
Yeah.
grab onto.
Clean and simple.
Do you want me to talk to Dana, or do you want me to just drop it about the indemnity? I mean, I guess our lawyer has told us we can't indemnify, so I'm fine if that's the case.
I don't think you're fine. I think you should call her.
I'm gonna, someday at the bar, I'm gonna be like, Dana, explain that one.
You want to explain this one to me because it doesn't make any sense.
At a bar event, to be clear,
Yeah, all right. Correct. Correct.
where I encounter people at the bar event.
But this is part of risk mitigation, right?
To the extent practicable, the parties will indemnify?
Yep.
Is that something that she thought would be okay,
I
even
mean,
if it
you know,
turns out that
it's-
I'm just wasting everyone's
To
time?
the extent permissible by Michigan law.
That
Yeah.
would really make me feel better.
Okay, we
Okay.
can do that.
I appreciate everyone's
Okay.
time.
Well, this is I mean, and I said this to people, like the benefit of the board that I get to work with is the fact that we have people with all sorts of deep talent sets. Yours happens to be legalese. So if it can help us with
At the end of the
avoiding
day, our
grief.
responsibility is to look for the absolute worst case
Yeah.
scenario and protect us from it.
Yeah, it is.
One other question, I think the last one that Sarah had was with regarding insurance, and yes, our insurer is aware that we will have 3 SLOs in the district. And I specifically asked, does that have any impact at all, up or down on our premium? And the answer is no. So he said presently it does not, so.
Could have good and bad things, yeah, mostly good, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, with those amendments, sort of, can we take the agreement as amended? Is it clear enough what the language would be, and then?
Because you answered my questions too already. I mean, mine were, did we agree by the lawyer? I questioned about, the very first statement about protecting us. I'm not a legal person, but the whole idea of responsibilities is to indemnify us as much as legally possible, right?
Right.
And then my last question was just really about is, if you've ever gone through an insurance policy, it tells you all the things they cover. It doesn't tell you the things they don't cover, right? And then when you find when something happens, like, yeah, we don't cover that. Wait a second, how come, whatever? So my question really was more about is there anything that our legal looked at and said, hey, you're not covered for this, should you put something in there? And so it's kind of, what is the thing that's not unwritten, that those things you always found in the insurance policy, like after the incident happens, like, oh, well, that one's not covered, that wasn't written in there. We're like, oh, shit, well, someone would have told me I'd have paid the extra $7 for the damn insurance policy, but is there anything that's not covered? And I guess you don't know until it happens.
Nothing that I'm aware of. Basically, we were told by our insurer to make sure that the city's insurance policy, which they provide to us, names us as an additional insured on the policy. So, and it does, and it's.
And then the township, you'll carry it through.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my other question was just, how does this compare to the township? And you've already answered it. This is a complete rewrite because the one we did in 2018 was
Right, pretty 2.5 pages.
But at the time, we thought it was good.
We did our best. It was, like, you're comfortable with like the whole thing about, their vacation and do we ask for like the vacation to be not during our part of the year, or is that like something?
We did.
We did.
So that's kind of the rule of SROs, that they do take their vacations where possible. I mean, sometimes they try to take those vacations in the summer and during our holiday week-long breaks.
Okay.
Cool.
And Kim, I think he had a couple of questions. One of those was with regards to, participating in school events. That was one of the responsibilities of the SLO. And Kim had suggested that we also expand that to include parents as part of, if there's a school event, that the SLO would support any parent events as well as student events. Is that?
That's it. There's PTA meetings when I'm sure parents would like to
Right.
have an opportunity to hear from the SLO and also to talk informally before or after the meetings.
Right. And then I think there was something with regarding training, and then, with regard to our own training, and certainly if we would make any kind of SEL training or whatever we may provide to our own staff. We would certainly invite, as we did with Alice, we would certainly invite the SLO in.
Yeah, our current SLO, it's SRO.
Yeah.
We're going to have to fix that. Our current SRO was very much involved and participated in our recent community building training that we did.
So
So
that's a
yes,
standing-
that's the standard of practice. Parent camp, they participate in those events.
Yep.
PTA as requested by principals around items of safety. Yep.
Becoming part of the culture that we're creating.
Right.
That's reassuring. And then I remember there was some discussion around that this is a 3-year contract.
Right.
And that we were wondering if there was going to be kind of a revolving door where we get every 3 years we get a new SRO. Is that?
Go ahead. You can.
So this contract was, the way this was written, it gives the district the option to continue with the existing SRO
Right.
year after year. So there's no sunset on that. So we just left the window open.
Right.
What I'm learning is that sometimes there's, different, their agency has different ways for them to rise to different levels of promotional opportunities. So obviously, we would want to make sure that the SRO was in agreement with that too, if it fit
Sure.
along with their professional plans.
Thank you.
I think the only other question that I think I received was from Melissa and was with regarding the timing of the SRO, the times that they'll be in the district, and there is actually, it needs to be populated, but there is basically a shift, and there will be a time that the SLO will be expected to be in the district. So that'll certainly be entered in.
Just as an aside, how are they doing on the onboarding? And I mean, because I know we had hoped that they would be here for school start.
So we've been working, we have been working with the city on that. As a matter of fact, I was in a final interview this afternoon with a great quality candidate. There's a lot of moving parts on getting that person in place and whoever is selected, depending on where they're at and on their journey. The city has their rules on training and all of those things. We're hoping, and we really are hoping that we can get a person in place by October 1st.
And that's not like field training. That's like a launched,
That's a launched, yes.
like
yes.
independent actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not short to onboard to law enforcement.
And Principal Jones and Principal Bugar participated in the interviews as well. So their voice was definitely heard throughout that process.
So those are the 2 schools of concern, not Ammerman?
We didn't include Ammerman only because there's just so much going on at that time when we were interviewing. And really the Ammerman is going to be the fun place that their folks go to, bring joy into their world. Not that all of them aren't those places. but- That's right. The SRO talked at length about, how they would support, our elementary programming. And a lot of that is connections in the community, being present, being available. Both of the SROs that were under consideration, final consideration, they love the fact that the middle school was right across from the elementary because they like to pop in and see things. And then we talked at length about Cook and the unique needs there as well.
This is really awesome to see this actually coming together and like starting the school year. So this is really great.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor as amended or as discussed? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Thank you so much, everyone, for this good work.
Did we actually
You're
read
welcome.
we were writing discussion, I don't think did we read it?
I think you read it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember, it was so long ago.
Sarah read it.
And to that point, Vice President Prescott, we have 2 youngsters who have been enjoying 2 hours of us
Yes.
adults
I wondered
meeting. Could we flip
we needed to move
the hire to that? Because I
yes.
think Will and Elin, and I'm sure Dad Scott would not be at all opposed to us bumping.
12.
Yeah, could we do
Okay.
that?
Yes,
All right.
I sat here thinking maybe we could
Aren't
do
they
our
good?
agendas
They
differently.
stayed in the room and all that, but that's because
Yeah,
they know
they're
Dad.
so good. They're so good. Well, this
They
is
come
item
back.
12. So this is our hire of our community, Director of Community Partnership and Wellness. I will ask Ms. McIntyre, would you do the motion?
Yeah, be glad to. I'd like to bring forth motion 19, that the board award a 1-year probationary, non-affiliated administrator contract to Darby Hoppenstedt, Director of Community Partnerships and Wellness for the 23-24 school year.
Support.
All right, I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre, supported by Dr. Campbell-Boytow, and we'll turn it over, I think, maybe to Ms. Peck.
Yes. So this has been an absolute labor of love. I think throughout this year with Dr. Weber, he has been assessing and thinking and plotting and planning and bringing us along in those conversations that led to this position that the board is in support of for the Director of Community Partnerships and Wellness. Our entire COLT team has been participating in all of this along the way because this position is pivotal in the growth of areas of support within our community for our students, our staff, our families, but also just to be aware that we need to start thinking about things a little bit differently in education in order for us to provide the services that our students and families deserve. So with that said, we launched a pretty intensive search for the right candidate for this position. It's funny, when you learn a new word, don't you just find yourself every day coming across that word, right? Like, wait, has this been here all along, or am I just, ahead of the pack? I don't know if I'm ahead of the pack, but since this position was posted and we started having great conversations with lots of wonderful candidates out there, I've been hearing every news station, every radio station I tune into, every podcast that comes across my way is really talking about student mental health and wellness. We have to approach the whole child within that K-12 continuum, and we have to figure out how to do that well. So I feel like we're ahead of the curve, and I feel like we're even more ahead of the curve because of the person that we found that has graciously accepted this position with your approval. Darby Hoppenstedt is here with her family. Give a wave. Darby has 19 years of experience in this field of work. She's a trained counselor, worked as a counselor at all of her experiences at Novi. I had to look it up. I thought it was Novi Public Schools, but it's Novi Community School District. She served as a counselor and intervention specialist, an MTSS 504 coordinator, a director of student support services, and most recently, she was named the director of mental health and wellness in Novi Community School District. The work that she has done to lead her to that position in that district and now ours has been just impressive and phenomenal. Her depth of understanding on how to build partnerships with colleges, University of Michigan, Wayne State University, how to build relationships with folks that have powerful positions in government, being able to secure $1 million grant for her district to build a wellness center in Novi. I mean, these are the types of things that don't happen overnight. They happen with that slow burn and passion for what's good for kids and what's good for families. And Darby Hoppenstedt brings that to us. Her success in building that stakeholder support, her depth of knowledge of mental health, really that out-of-the-box entrepreneurial thinking that we all agreed that that's part of this work. We have to think differently about things. She gave us example after example of developing key partnerships and funding sources. I just can't be more pleased to present to you today Darby Hoppenstedt. So on behalf of the Central Office Administration team, I recommend that the Board of Education approve a 1-year non-affiliated administrator contract for Darby Hoppenstedt to serve as the Director of Community Partnerships and Wellness for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you so much, Ms. Peck. And, we've sat through a number of presentations of new hires, and there are some that are as warm, but I don't know if I've ever heard one that's warmer recommendation to this board. And I can just feel your excitement, and I understand it. What comments from the board?
I kept thinking, what kind of a person would, as we were kind of marinating on this vision, and I'm a master's level counselor myself. I also have an LPC, and I kept, we were kind of dialoguing with RJ, with Rebecca, at various different times about, okay, what would the vision look like? I know that Beth, you've had to have been a part of this conversation too, right? And I kept thinking, what would be like the perfect blend of all of these skill sets? And I'm so excited that like you are coming to this position, that you're interested in coming to Northville, that I think we've also had a vision of how do we attract really talented, smart, engaging, motivated people. And so I am personally really excited to have learned about you, Darby, and all of the skills that you're bringing. So this is like, I don't know, this is exciting. This is like going to Disney, but with, supporting mental health for kids and for our community. So I'm thrilled.
I just look at the resume and you just hit, every item or every buzzword you want to hit in here. So it's an incredible resume, incredible skill set. I only think one thing, and Aaron's not here, but we're not stealing from Wayne Westline. We had a while there where I think we must have stolen.
Like 5 of them, right?
Yeah. Oh God, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It felt like 10, but maybe it was only 5 or 6. I feel bad for the Novi district, but I think it's great that you want to come in. I think we are a special district. I think we do things a little bit differently, and I think your skills can play a great role in how we nurture. I always like to think about we are number one, but it means you got to work a lot harder to stay there. So we're going to put you to work. True.
Well, this is the next best thing on your list of things to keep our eyes on. I have worked on the other side of what you're proposing to bring to our department, and that is as a university with student resources and and I appreciate and fully respect the talent that it takes to manage different resource streams in a way that makes a really substantive contribution to the health and wellness of our kids here. So, everybody comes, with something to offer, but it takes a really skillful person to build it in such a way that everybody wins, and but the biggest winners are kids. So I see that your work with Wayne State, certainly in U of M, you understand with that capacity, that's those students, especially if they're end of program students or they're graduate students, really do some substantive work. And we're going to have to be creative because all of that money, all that mental health money is much of it is going away. So the fact that you've worked with Easter Seals, or you've also, I don't know who the funder was for your district wellness center, but they're finding those funders and being able to be more entrepreneurial in the way we locate opportunities, and human as well as financial, I think is really going to be helpful too. So it is an exciting resume, and I just feel so fortunate that our team brought you here, and look forward to working with you.
Would you like to say anything? So I, having served in Novi, one of the things that was really important to me was to divorce myself from the whole process, to allow our stakeholders and what Rebecca has built, and maybe Dave prior to that. Everything that you all just said, you're going to see. I can virtually guarantee it. And really, what makes us better? And sometimes it's non-traditional thinking. Sometimes, and I'm grateful that you allow me and our team to come to you with things like Aaron did earlier, right? Like, hey, let's try this. And it didn't work. And you're like, why didn't it work? That sounds great. And there are things that do, but we will truly be a district of excellence when we allow ourselves to push forward into areas that might not be as apparent. We couldn't find a job posting like this in the state of Michigan, or frankly, the country, that combined the financial protections and aspects of it with the community partnerships and the mental health and well-being. Mm-hmm. So I can't say enough of how fortunate we are. Your family, I'm glad they're here to see it. They've had to put up with a lot over the past few years. So
Well, good evening. Thank you. I am so grateful to be here, and I am so thankful for this opportunity to the board for supporting this work and understanding the critical need that is there for our students and frankly our staff, our educators who also need to be wrapped around and supported. So thank you to Colt and the process, and the posting itself was just incredible. When I read it, I was over the moon. I was so excited to see this on paper, and I'm more excited to get to work and really make this become, the vision that is there. So I'm just really grateful to be here, and I thank my family and my husband Scott, my son Will, and Elin, and I have a current colleague here to support me, and I, again, just am really, really excited to get to work for our students and community and staff. So thank you.
Thank you.
We kind of have a tradition where we like to take a picture of hires like this. And Beth Stanter, who's a much better person than I ever will be, went out and got you some flowers as well. And I know you and Beth are going to be working really closely together. So I'll take the picture, but Scott, Will, Elin, anyone else come up here? And just the board will see.
You want to vote on reverse?
Oh, yeah. This might not work out.
All in favor? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will carry. Welcome.
So excited.
Come over here.
Joel, Michael.
Oh, is that what he wanted? What did he? I thought he wanted this thing. Yeah. Welcome to the family. It's very nice that you could all be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, keep
Humongous in there.
I know. I always have to hang out on the edge.
You're gonna get
This is bullying.
We're not asking you to smile, we're just asking you to stand. If you don't come, we'll get a warrant to make you come.
Be happy.
All right. Thank you.
Hang on, I gotta do one for me. So I can tweet it out to Novi, we just lost it, great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Welcome, welcome.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
We're glad to have your mouth.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being so patient.
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting until late night.
Welcome. Thank you to the board for moving that along.
We should have done it earlier. It was.
Oh, no, we were getting into it. It's
Okay.
okay.
Okay, well, we also have some bid award to do and also have some presentation on that. So I'm going to ask Ms. McIntyre to bring, it's item 11 on our agenda and it's motion 18.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 18 that the board authorize the administration to award contracts for a Kubota that's an interesting word. RTV X1100 with a snowplow and salter box from Motor City Kubota, totaling $35,961.03, funded through the general fund, and B, Phase 1 stadium bleachers and paving, totaling $3,035,699, funded through bond 2017 as presented.
Support.
All right, I have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre, supported by Mr. Mazurek, and we'll turn it over.
I'm gonna come up with, should I mind?
Yes.
I feel like I'm sitting in the back here.
I feel like you sat and waited your turn. You should get your floor space.
Was there any questions on the Kubota? It's kind of a routine piece of equipment. We use, the district uses for snow removal and other things, so if there's no questions on that, I'll get into the bid award. I do want to make a mention, though, the motion says 2017 bond. It's
Yeah.
funded out of 2023 and 2017,
Okay.
Okay,
so
thank you for just.
might want to correct that.
Yeah.
So this is our first bid award for the 2023 project. It was suggested and we do just a little update what we've been doing with the bond and what we're doing now, what we've done, what we're doing now, and what we're planning for in the near term. Just a couple highlights there. We've negotiated all the professional service contracts. We sold Series 1 of the bonds, which was, really a great process at Northville High School, seeing that and seeing the market in action. We've awarded the wireless access point project. We're doing bi-weekly meetings with professional teams, architects, construction managers, and other consultants. We've had design meetings with the Ammerman team, design meetings with the Meads Middle team, and we've completed the design and bidding for the bleacher project, which is really the first major project out of the gate. Couple other infrastructure type projects we've done this year. We replaced the turf at the 8 Mile Stadium, replaced the water heaters at the high school, did a major roofing project at Winchester that's wrapping up, some minor drainage improvement projects at Cook and Moraine, started the wireless access point project, upgraded the security cameras, and Andrew's working with Aaron on steam equipment. I know this is tough to see. It's going to be included in your packet, but this is the same schedule we've talked about a couple times now, kind of the bond implementation program for the 2023 bond. All the red bars are design, and yellow gets into procurement, but I've kind of drawn a line, red line there in the August, September months, and that's exactly where we are on track. So this is our gauge, where we're doing, what we're doing, and how we're going to get the end of this bond in 2028. 8 Mile projects or planned projects for 2024. We talked about the bleachers. We'll get to that award here shortly. Transportation paving from the building to 8 Mile. Couple other projects. We're doing some work on the Cook HVAC that's getting funded by Act 18 RESA. A phase 2 of some more drainage work at Moraine. Roofing projects for next year includes part of the high school, some sections at Ammerman and the Tech Ops building, a paving project at Technology and Operations. We're looking at playground equipment at Silver Springs, Winchester, and Ammerman, but with the Ammerman work, we might actually cook that to a different year so it doesn't conflict with the construction that's going on. And then I don't know why the formatting of this particular slide, but we're looking at baseball and softball turf 2020, and actually it's bond 2023, but work would occur in 2024. So getting into the bleacher and transportation bid award, couple of highlights on the project. We're going to have ADA access at both north and south end of the bleachers now. We are going to have ADA access and seating on the visitor side, which we don't have now. Additional seating capacity in the system. For past couple of years, we've been renting temporary bleachers for the band. Won't need that anymore. We're eliminating the hill on the home side, so that kind of earth mound there, that would actually be gone. We're going to have additional pedestrian circulation underneath the grandstands, some storage area, drainage improvements, a new sound system for the stadium, and we're expanding the video camera infrastructure. So what does that mean? What does that, with that hill gone, what is that going to look like? The areas in blue are actually going to be areas you could walk underneath the bleachers, north-south, so you can get to different parts of the stadium underneath the bleachers instead of walking in front of the bleacher section. We'll have those ADA ramps at either side and along with normal pedestrian or typical pedestrian stairs. So here's kind of what it's going to look like. Underneath, you can see the columns for the bleachers. The area in red, that would be the area that you could walk underneath in the bleacher system. And the area in blue, that's actually going to be storage for different athletic equipment, track, football, you name it. We're going to be able to store things underneath the bleachers. Visitor grandstand, you can see the arrangement of the handicap or wheelchair accessible ramp is in front of the bleachers with stairs on either side. I should mention all the stairs going up to the bleacher sections will have handrails. I know that was a big, it's a part of our bleachers we don't have now that a lot of people are looking forward to. Here's some example photos of the wheelchair bleacher sections and the ramps. Those handrails will be included as you go up into the seating area. The top of the grandstands on the home side is going to have this kind of viewing platform off the press box. There's a small version of that now in our current system, but it's going to be expanded.
That's for all the VIPs. Do we sell boxes?
Miss Irving might call that up as her son matriculates up in our football program, so you might have to get dibs on one
We
of
get
those.
like the DTE box.
Skybox.
and
Skybox
box.
for the board.
We'll be looking for sponsors for those boxes.
Man,
Another sponsorship opportunity.
you heard it here, folks.
So we challenged the engineers a little bit to the paving for transportation that didn't get done in the previous bond. We rolled up into 2023. We wanted to do it after the bleacher work is done because that's going to involve a lot of construction, a lot of heavy equipment. So we said, let's get the bleachers done and then finish up transportation and it'll all look nice. Well, we challenged the engineers a bit. We're going to do the section from transportation down to 8 Mile. We threw it in with this project. It becomes more attractive when you have kind of larger scopes of work for paving and asphalt, when you have, it can bundle it up and have the economy of scale. So they were able to advance that portion of the project. We are enhancing it a bit. Looking at soil erosion issues with that, with the hill. We're looking at different ways to treat the aggregate shoulders off the pavement so we don't have that problem long term. We've got a lot of overgrown vegetation along 8 Mile. I'm going to fast forward here a little bit. So along 8 Mile, I ask everyone to drive that section here in the next couple of weeks, and you can have a better visualization what I'm looking at or what you're looking at. Is there's actually fences within that vegetation you can't see anymore because over years and years and years, it's all grown up and gone through the fences. So what we want to do is clean up that bubbled area, take down a lot of that scrub vegetation. The purposeful trees that are there, we're not eliminating, but everything that's grown up into the fence, we need to eliminate, rip down that fence. And we talked about at finance, maybe adding some trees, purposeful trees back to that area. So just cleans up the front door along 8 Mile. There's a lot of fencing along there we want to take down and not put back up because the fence line is just something you have to maintain. You'll notice at Northville High School, there's no fence around Northville High School because it's just something you have to maintain. Newer construction, it's not typical to put a fence around a school anymore. So we want to eliminate a lot of the fences along that north side of 8 Mile on our property. We are adding a little bit of pavement on the bus pickup and drop off area because right now the kids exit onto could be aggregate, could be grass, could be anything. So we're going to expand the pavement a little bit, and then we're going to expand the pavement a little bit down by the salt barn, which is actually the end of the chute of the track. A lot of first responder vehicles, a lot of officials. We could expand the parking area and staging area for those folks. I know that was quick. It's been a long meeting. I do want to thank Foresight Design, Spalding, Peter Basso Associates, AUK. Mitch is here with us tonight. We're co-planners. None of this stuff happens, just by myself. We got a big team. We got a big team of people out behind us doing the good work for our district. From March to today, it's been pretty busy, and it's just going to get busier in the next couple of years as we roll through this particular bond. We do have the motion in front of you for the bid award. There were, I think, Mitch, 3 or 4 people were recommending the second low bidder.
Yeah.
There's a process. We receive the bids. The professional team sits down with the bidders, goes through the scope of work, goes through the plans, goes through the specifications. When something doesn't, check the box, we go back, double check everything. So sometimes the bidder makes an error in their bid and they ask to be excused from the bid. We'd rather have that situation where they know they made a problem and we don't want to award a contract to someone they know they have a problem with the bid. Sometimes in the case of the bleachers themselves, they did bid the plans and specs. So the low bidder for the bleacher bid the system that was designed. We did a pretty thoughtful evaluation of the system they proposed. It would require a fair amount of re-engineering of what was done. And we decided not to go down that path because we'd have to really redevelop the site work. It impacted multiple trades. And at the end of the day, it was kind of a compromise from what our designer originally intended. So that's why that's the second low bidder in that category. I talk fast. I don't know if there's any questions.
We did actually review this also in finance subcommittee, went through a little bit more details in that. I do appreciate though having those professional teams to go through those bids and kind of look for. I mean, what's important is, I mean, certainly we want to save money, but we want to make sure that the suppliers are capable of delivering quality. Because if you get a non-quality job, it doesn't matter what you save, right? And so being able to go through that, identify where either they weren't quoting what we wanted or were not able to meet our requirements is kind of key in that. And so it's a pretty thoughtful job. And I'll be really honest that, you know, a lot of us, we've experienced the stands for a lot of different years, and we've seen incidences without those handrails. So I am really looking forward to the fact that we're able to pull this and get this replaced as soon as possible. You know, again, went through a lot of detail, and I thank the teams for all the effort they've done.
I really appreciate too that you gave us such a thorough explanation of what you've been working on as far as the design process for the schools, right? That often what we hear is, well, what's happening with Ammerman, what's happening with Meads, what's happening with the playground. So thank you for really spending your time and being diligent also in sharing that with us.
Right,
as well.
and probably 2 or 3 months, maybe another board meeting, sometime definitely this fall, we'll bring to you an update with what's going on at Meads and Ammerman, because those are two exciting projects, and you know, we're going to be at a point where we had some very constructive dialogues about what those projects look like with the team, very conceptual, onion skin, like what if kind of scenarios. In the next couple months, we're going to be able to come to you with, you know, the next iteration of those plans, kind of give you more details about the thought process of where we're at.
I think that'll be really helpful.
Just a quick question about the fencing. Is it the same type of fencing that you're replacing? Like you're going to replace like?
Actually, I'm not going to put, I'm sorry, I'll let
No,
you
go
finish.
ahead.
Along 8 Mile, we're not going to put any fencing back.
Oh, there won't be any.
We're going to do a little section around the playground at Ammerman, just to kind of make sure we put a little box around it, not all the way around, but a two-sided box.
Yeah.
Because it fronts 8 Mile,
Yeah.
there's always that concern, what if the kids did something and ran out toward 8 Mile? So we are going to put a section around that playground.
Will it be the same type of fences there?
It'll be a black vinyl, black chain link fence.
Okay.
But it's going to be much smaller in scope and kind of defined around that playground.
So as you're going up the hill,
Correct.
there won't be any of that fencing will all be
Right,
gone?
on your right, if you're going west,
Yes.
so it's the
North side.
vegetation, the living wall, for lack of a better word. You know, there's sections where there's fence, there's sections where there's fence and you can't see it. That's all going to be removed.
Okay.
So we talked about maybe adding some plantings to soften it up a little bit, but they'll be purposeful and we can maintain around them and it looks like we planned it versus it just didn't get maintained for 20 years.
Okay.
I really appreciate what you said too about that area being the front door to the district, right? When you look on the north side, no, I guess that'd be the south side, and you see Hillside and how beautiful that is and all of those plantings. And then you look to the other side, you're like, okay. So to make it, I don't know, just look purposeful, right? And lovely.
And I think the south side of 8 Mile, what's been done there and how that's been cleaned up also looks really nice.
Right, we
Looks
still
great.
got some work to do there, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
Well, I like the safety aspects of what we did in the south side, right?
Yes.
We cleared up all that shrub and made it so, you know, you could kind of get hidden in that little woods previously and things could happen. And so now it kind of cleans it all up. And I think it's actually a safer environment. Not only does it look better, but it's safer for the community, kids, everybody. So, and that's part of the cleaning up the north side is it's all grown and weeds in and let's clean it up, make it look better. But I think it also becomes a safer environment.
We also talked about the new back, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but as far as the weeds. Haha, that's a funny tie-in. But talking about the pedestrian walkway underneath the bleachers, that will be a much more open space with security cameras and things like that that will improve the security for students, people, whoever, the district.
I think it's a side point we didn't talk about, but we did talk about in finance, is that
Bleachers.
it's I'm gonna call it a semi-dry area underneath the bleachers, where right now it rains, everything just kind of flows on through. It is not quote watertight or anything else like that, but it's semi-sealed where, it will be, if there's rain, you can go underneath there and it'll protect you a bit, right? That's.
It will.
You talked about having vendors also in there,
Yeah,
people selling spirit
because,
things like that.
we've been there,
that'd be
where
great.
the concession stand is and the locker rooms, and there's that piece of grass that, tents get set up and, different organizations sell the hot chocolate or the T-shirts or the sweatshirts. That could kind of occur underneath the bleachers now in a more protective environment. But eventually down the road, it might be a community project. We look at connecting the end of the bleachers with the pieces of pavement where the concession is, and kind of make that more of an expanded plaza. I mean, you could see that now that you can actually walk through there and not have a hill and trees in the middle of it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I love the forward thinking. It's awesome.
I have a question about the sound system. Is there going to be, and I'm sure there is, but will you be looking at the amount of noise that goes out into the surrounding neighborhoods
Right,
when
so-
you're redoing the sound system?
So right now, the speakers are on the home side, stadium lights,
Mm-hmm.
and you really have to blast it across the field to get to the visitor side, right? So we've got a vendor, sound system vendor, we've been working with on a number of projects. They gave us a lot of expertise. We're gonna install speakers on both sides of the field, so we can direct sound to the visitor side from the visitor side speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and then not try to blast it all the way across. So we'll have more directed sound.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's set up, in order for people to hear on the visitor side, it's got to be cranked up. So
I mean, I don't mind hearing the marching band from my house on 8 Mile and back, but I'm sure the neighbors right around there, it gets even louder.
it does. We've had some. Mike has developed a relationship with a particular neighbor.
That's right.
I think I've met him as well. Yes.
I've been in his living room.
Okay.
So,
If we don't fix the problem, he's going to meet all of you.
Yeah.
we are trying very hard.
Yay.
Some of it is how we use the system,
Mm-hmm.
because the stadium, years and years ago, it was Friday night football and that was it.
Yeah,
Now it's Tuesday, it's Thursday, it's Friday, it's Saturday, it's Sunday. So we've expanded the uses with all the different opportunities, which is great. But I think some of those other groups, even outside groups like the youth football, we've had to educate them on how to use the system properly, not
Gratuitously.
So the newer
To
system is
11.
going to be able to be more focused, and hopefully we can reduce that sound energy that leaves the stadium.
Great.
I hope we can still hear something on Friday night football, though.
I'm sure I'm at 8 Mile and Novi, and I can hear it.
Good, downtown, I want to hear it downtown.
Right.
I love hearing, the cheering crowds, I like to hear the announcing, it's very exciting.
So you'll be our ambassador to those who might not
Yes, I
find
will.
it enjoyable.
When you hear complaints from those condos over there, we're sending you.
Right.
Yeah.
Steve knows who to invite next, but he's welcomed into the
You can
living
go to the living room next. Okay, so the next question that I just wanted to maybe throw out is just as a matter of like community dialogue, and also it jumps off of Lisa's point about sort of just being aware of the progress as we think about bonds in the future. Maybe could some of this information get pushed out to building leaders and encouraged to like put into their peak of the week or their Eagle Express or their whatever, like just, your bond money at work, like here's what's been going on, like that would be.
I think
Maybe.
now that we're starting to get into the meat of the process, I think we're sitting with Rebecca and Katie and developing some templates and formats that we can post on our website and then that could be linked in with the principal's communications.
Yeah, that'd be great because it just gives people that sense of like, we
But we don't-
voted and like there's action, even because they're not going to see it right away, like at Ammerman or, you know, some of these places. But thank you so much. Any other comments or questions for Steve before we vote?
Good job.
All right, so this is number 11. It was as amended. And we'll take the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion will carry as amended. That takes us to our next opportunity for public comment. None. I will move on to questions and comments from board members.
Well, just speaking of football, there's a game in Ann Arbor at the Big House for our football team on Friday, so hope to see lots of people there. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that'll be
I
fun.
don't even have a, I was
$10 at the door, cash. You two can see our kids. I was at DDA this morning. It's not probably anything that's ever going to come up before the board, but just wanted to make a point that there is some now discussion about moving to curbless street designs in Northville, in particular, especially on the main plaza. So an idea of raising the street up and not having a curb to demarcation. So I just said, I hope someone will think about little children and like, because the idea is that somehow drivers are signaled to go slower and I'm like, are little children signaled to stay in and out and like, you know, but I don't know if it'll be anything that comes before us, or, you know, that you all hear about anything with that, but it is gaining a little bit of dialogue at the city level, the churn of sort of the open the streets people and that whole dialogue. So I have seen that online, and then there was at city council a couple nights ago and now at DDA this morning, so.
It's interesting.
It is
Okay.
interesting.
Never.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pedestrian friendly and make it like a nice plaza feel when they do close it. Yeah. But that was my only update from DDA.
I would just like to comment on the progress in our pocket park. That is, adjacent to our building where we sit at this moment. It looks beautiful. Our board statue has found its home and
Yeah.
and we've got the sod down. And are you going to say anything? Are there any plans for a bench or?
The contractor has the bench on order, just right.
Okay.
These things take time.
Sure. I'm sure. So one bench is planned for that space? Is that it or?
Correct.
What do you want to say, Mike? It's been,
I don't know if anybody's walked by there or not, but the irrigation system comes courtesy of our next door neighbor, I believe.
so they haven't adjusted
So
the
those
sprinkler
plantings
system
that are
yet?
there,
No, they purposely tied the
Yeah.
roads into that area.
right.
Oh.
It was their landscaper who actually worked with Steve and designed that little piece, so
That's
I think
lovely.
it worked out very well.
I think so too. Looks really nice. And I know that we're
I'll have to walk by.
glad to have
I'm
it.
glad you mentioned it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Other comments, questions? Other than it's just shy of 9, we can close it out if everybody's okay with that. All right, I'll call us adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Jim.